Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. We truly do appreciate the support each and every week. Please make sure you are liking, sharing, following, subscribing to us on whatever streaming service you are listening on, and head over to social media as well. Give us a follow there so you can stay up to date on all the exciting episodes that we have coming up in the future. Today, we are sitting down with Shawnee Kish for a raw, powerful, and intimate conversation. She is a Canadian Mohawk, Two-Spirit Indigenous singer-songwriter and a proud member of the LGBTQ 2S+ community. She talked about the struggles that she had growing up searching for her true identity, the power that she found through music, and how she hopes to support others through not only her music, but her voice. So please enjoy our conversation with Shawnee Kish. I wanted to introduce you, and I want to get this right. So let me do it, and you have to tell me if it sounds right, okay? Okay. So here it comes. Our Bonnie Shawnee, she's our singer most of the time.
Oh.
She's a humdinger.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's the way I want to be introduced every time now.
So let's give a little context to that for our listeners. On your social media, you have a little clip. You must be about 3, I think, in that clip, and you're walking up onto sort of an imaginary stage in front of your family. And is that your dad or an uncle or someone who introduces you?
That's my dad who filmed everything. And that video is especially special to me because he passed when I was 12. So that memory of him just sort of reminds me that he kind of, he saw that I wanted to be a singer at that very, very young age. And I actually put that sample of his voice in a song that won't be on the upcoming EP, but it will be on a song released later.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, I love that clip. So that was very sweet.
And so were you about 3 in that clip?
I think so, yeah. About that, yeah.
And it seemed that, it's funny, there was a second clip. It looked like it was the same day because you were dressed the same and you were at a picnic table with your family. You were singing Signs by the 5-man electrical band, it sounded like. And your family was sort of eating around the picnic table, and they didn't seem like, it seemed like it was a regular thing. They were just kind of eating and not really paying attention. So at that age, was that a regular thing for you?
Yeah, actually, it's really funny because I never noticed that until someone else pointed it out. It's like, oh, here Shawnee goes again. Like, she needs her attention. And I'm standing up on a table. I'm like, everybody stop what you're doing and pay attention. I have something to sing. That was basically me.
And where did that influence come from? Because that song at that time, that was pretty much already classic rock. And so did that influence come from your parents? Is that what they listened to?
Yeah, I grew up, music was always in the house, like always playing constantly. And everything from like classic rock to like a lot of Garth Brooks, Melissa Etheridge, my mom listened to. Classical music at nighttime. I'd fall asleep every night to like Yanni, Beethoven, like any sort of classical music. There was always music in the house and always instruments.
And so did they play as well, your parents?
Okay, well, I mean,
sort of.
Yes and no, like for fun, yeah.
At that age, at the age of 3, when you started performing and you started doing all of that, what did they think? Like, you say your dad was very supportive in that and kind of, in that introducing you and stuff. So did they always sort of have the thought in the back of their mind that this is what you were sort of destined to do and this is what you were going to do?
Funny thing is, my mom tells me that she had a dream like before she had me, that we're very like spiritual in our family. So my mom actually had this dream. She said that she had a daughter and she was in like the industry in some sort of way. So she sort of had that, I guess, like premonition, but then meeting me, she was probably like, yeah, that makes sense. Like meeting my personality and, just like this feisty little kid who enjoyed, just making music and being a part of, like the creative sort of life. So I think so. I believe they kind of could recognize that. What did they think it could be, like a viable career? Probably not, because you hear, like a lot of parents are like, get an education, you have, and the truth is you don't have control over what music or, this type of job, the creative sort of job, you don't have control over where that can bring you or where you can end up in life. And that's why you have to do it for the heart of it and the spirit and because you love it.
And what age was it for you where it started to really take a hold? Because I know at 12, we'll talk about that. That's sort of when your career started. But as far as just your love of music and thinking that was a road you wanted to go down, do you remember like a moment or a time in your life where it really took hold of you?
It transitioned. Like when I was young, I enjoyed music and being creative, not really understanding why. And then when I was 12, I got my first job, which maybe we will talk about, but
Oh, we will.
not.
Don't worry, okay, we will.
Okay, good. That tends to come up a lot these days. Well, yeah, so I was my first job. I was 12 years old and I just kind of stumbled into it. So I fell in love with the performing aspect of music, but honestly, it was really in my teenage years when I struggled and I needed medicine, that it was music that was there for me. And that is very much why I treat music as medicine today throughout my career, because I believe it's, it's so powerful. It's such a powerful tool that I believe really did save me at a time that I needed it. So at around 16, when I started writing and creating in that way and being expressive with the things that I was faced with and going through, I realized that that was my purpose on this planet, was to use music to help, not only myself, but other people who might need that boost and that energy and that inspiration and empowerment.
And I want to talk about those struggles because that's very important, but we can't skip past your first job at 12. And I hope I get this right. A Shania Twain impersonator is what that first job was. And now I know that I've heard you talk about the fact that, I'm never going to outgrow this. I'm never going to outrun this. But I was thinking about it, like at 12, if your voice was good enough to pass as a Shania Twain impersonator, like that's something to be proud of. You don't necessarily want to run away from that, because that is awesome at 12 to have that ability and have that talent. And so just talk about that phase and what it was like and what it entailed, basically.
Yeah, well, I sort of stumbled into it. I was listening to Shania Twain a lot and impersonating, and I was fascinated with like matching my voice to her voice. And then I was I had this great idea of being in a pageant, which is great for other people and it works for them and they really excel in that area. But I was awkward and, I was really awkward. I still am, but I walked into this pageant and didn't fit in, but there was the talent segment of the entire pageant, which that was my time to shine. And so I sang my Shania Twain song, and somebody actually hired me from there to sing at a party. And I started doing that, and I started singing as a Shania Twain impersonator, and that really did develop my sort of stage presence awareness and love for like performing in front of people.
Yeah, what was that like? Because you're going from, performing in front of family to all of a sudden performing in front of crowds. What was that feeling like for you?
I felt like I was Shania Twain. I was 12 years old, and I felt like, I think it was mostly awkward. Like looking back, it was awkward because I was 12. And so, I looked nothing like her. So you had to close your eyes to believe it. And the impersonation was, I do the moves and the and try to match like the voice and the outfits. And so if anything, it was like a little bit awkward, kind of cute. And, but I I learned a lot. I learned so much from that experience. I would go to like impersonation contests where there'd be like 50 Elvises and like 20 Shania Twains, and then I'd show up in like my tied up shirt and like the youngest there, and never won because I looked nothing like her. But I did gain a lot of awareness, and that was my start. It was my launching sort of start into, I love performing. I love, and I want to explore that in my own way.
And that was also the start of your career, in the fact that you started getting attention from the industry. And so when did that start to come to you, and people in the industry start to come to you as, this could be a career for you?
I transitioned a few times. Like after the Shania Twain impersonating, I joined a rock band. I was doing like AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, like all those, which also very much contributed to like the power of my voice and like sometimes the grit, and just like that hard rock edge sort of feel that I experienced. But that was rough. Like performing in a cover band is no joke. Like late nights, not a lot of money. And it was, like you really had to buckle up for like every night of working in, some sort of party atmosphere. So I wanted more from music. I really wanted to express myself after that whole experience. And so I really deep dove into writing my own music and picking up the guitar. So I brought my guitar after I graduated to Toronto, and I started performing, and whoever would listen to me. And from there I met, I was introduced into the industry, and that was basically my first experience, albeit it was a rough one. Once I started, there was a lot that I needed to learn. And you do hear a lot of artists sort of talk about that experience. Everybody kind of has that experience where they go, that was something I had to learn from. And I very much did in like my younger 20s.
And before we talk about that, because everything kind of flows together, let's talk about the struggles when you were younger, the struggles with identity, the struggles of understanding who you were. When did those really begin for you? When's the first moment in your life where you remember just kind of struggling and being so down that you were like, I don't know where to go anymore?
Yeah, I remember always kind of struggling with my identity as a young kid. Like I remember thinking, like the whole self process of like coming out, looking back, I understand it better. But back then, like even as young as like 6 and 7, feeling like not, feeling like I didn't fit in with my peers, and feeling like because of my interest and because of, the things that I was drawn to, I just never sort of felt like I fit in. And then in my teenage years, struggling to try to fit in, but it not like the shapes were not fitting is the way I explain it. And then I lost my dad, and home life really became something that didn't feel like a safe place anymore. And I didn't feel safe at school, and I didn't feel like I was fitting in with friends. And I just sort of felt alone. I felt alone in a world. I did not understand myself as an Indigenous person. I was not close to my culture. I did not understand who I was and what my place was. And so, when I discovered music and its healing abilities, that became my friend, and that became my therapy, and that became my medicine. And it became something that gave me a reason and a purpose to exist and take up space in this world, because it was something that spoke to my spirit. And I just understood everything made sense after that. I started fighting to get to know myself, and then I came out, and then I went to my first sweat lodge in Powwow, and figuring myself out as an Indigenous person. What does that mean? And what does it mean to my family? And what have we faced? And what have we been through? And things just started to make sense for me.
And growing up, that Indigenous culture on your mom's side, was that something that was within the family? Was that celebrated within the family? Was it talked about within the family?
It was not celebrated. It was very little talked about. I barely knew that. I didn't know what it meant. I knew that I was Indigenous, but I didn't know what that meant. And it wasn't really until some point in high school, it was like early high school, and somebody had sort of I had worn my hair in braids, and somebody had pointed out like, haha, you look like Pocahontas. And I thought, what does that mean? Like, why would you say that? And I had questions. I had so many questions. And then, just being able to experience the culture after that, and learning what that meant, we sort of came to that together as a family and learned more about what that meant as a family around the same time.
And now with your dad passing away, were you able to come out to him before he passed? Did he know the true you before he passed?
I wonder if he did. It's not something we ever talked about. I was young when he passed. I was 10 years old, almost 11. So
okay.
I wasn't quite out. But I wonder if he knew, because I had diaries and, just life experiences that probably pointed towards that. So I don't know. I'm not really sure.
And you found music as a way to crawl out of that darkness. I've heard you say that, traditional therapy counseling didn't necessarily work for you, but for other youth right now who are maybe struggling with that transition, what would you say to them in just being able to find their own way out of the darkness?
Yeah, I would say definitely reach out. Like I also didn't understand that it didn't feel like a conversation back then for me, like people were having. It just kind of felt like, well, you feel this way, well, don't talk about it, brush it under the rug. And it really, I feel now that the conversation is open and we're talking about the suicide crisis, and Kids Help Phone is out there, and they're doing all their work, and the We Matter campaign, and there's so many things happening now, and resources, and the conversation about, this struggle that especially young people are having. This conversation is open, and even, the new conversations about the Indigenous people in our history, like we are opening this up as a country, and we're having these real talks about what this means. Like the suicide crisis is very real. And so, I would say to any young person struggling, you're not alone, and open up, and know that I myself have been there. I faced that. And even if you feel like you can't, because a lot of the time it's about trust, you don't trust other people, and you can sit in front of somebody or across their table or on the phone and talk to them and tell them your problems, or tell them what you're going through, or tell them your struggles, even in the most desperate times. But it's about trust, especially within the Indigenous communities and these young kids that they don't trust, and rightly so. So, I think it helps just to have these open conversations, and something like music, that it's just this language that speaks to people without, you don't need that trust factor. You don't need that, it's just open. It's open to speak to your heart, and it can be there for you when you feel like you can't trust. And I think that was my biggest struggle, is being able to really feel like safe to trust someone that would help me because they wanted to, and not for any other reason. And that's really big, I think, with young kids. So, I just to create and to even go outside, something like go outside and just connect with yourself in any way that you can. If you feel alone, and if you feel like you can't pick up the phone, and if you feel like you can't, talk to someone, but just to continue to let young people know that you can in any way that looks like, that's good. Just that your struggle makes you who you are, and it makes you great.
And it's like, for you, is it a continuous sort of movement? Like, it's not necessarily a switch gets turned and all of a sudden things are perfect and rosy and the road forward is great. It's a constant sort of battle almost to overcome it, right? And find those things within your life that help you to just go day to day and overcome those struggles.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I think the difference between back then for me and now is now I understand that when I'm faced with struggle and I'm faced with something that's painful, and believe me, like this year has been life altering, things with my mom, and like my best friend is my mom, and she's, she had a stroke, and
Mm-hmm.
her everything has changed. Everything has changed, which for me, like seeing my best friend, the person that, I've grown so much with, we've grown together so much, and it's just not, things are hard, and my career, things changing, with the pandemic and having to work with that. There's so much going on, and for everybody. But I think the difference between, looking at struggle now today, as opposed to when I was younger, is knowing that I can get through this. I will get through this. I'll use, I go out to a field, and I'll drive out to a field, and I'll look out into an empty field, and I'll just sit there. Then I'll write if I have to. I'll bring my guitar if I have to, but I'll just sit in whatever I need to sit in, or listen to music, or run, or do something that, just fills up my cup a little bit, so that, I can get through what I need to get through, and know that this part of my life is going to make me stronger. It gives me another tool, adds another tool to my, to be better, to be greater, to give back and put back into the world. And that's what struggle does for us. It's what pain does for us. We're meant to overcome it and then become who we're meant to become. I know that now. I didn't back then.
And so, with all the struggle, especially over the past year and a half or so, that you and everyone has gone through, how personal is this new record for you, and your heart and soul that you've put into it, in being able just to flush those emotions out of you of what the past year and a half have been?
It's definitely the most personal I've ever created. And that has always been my goal, is to, write. It's so intimidating to write, to create, and then voice that creation. You're putting your experiences and your most vulnerable self out there. It is intimidating. But I promised myself that as an artist, I would do that, because it's so important to create from my truth. And so there's songs like, the song Diagnosed Dissociative, which was a therapy session that I had to come to terms with. There's some things that I had to come to terms with. It was a bad therapy session, but there are some things that I had to face. And I wrote a song about that. And, I never, ever thought that I would be at a place where I could use the most vulnerable pieces of my life and be able to express them through art. And so this EP is very much just the beginning of, my most vulnerable places of my life.
And there was Burn in Love that you wrote with Jamie Fine. And I believe you were at the National Music Center when you wrote that song. And so what did that environment and writing with her, how did that help shape that song?
Oh, wow. That song was like, I've never had a writing session where, and I met Jamie through the Juno Masterclass, and Jamie just spoke my language, like this strong female who just dominates through her voice and career and her business. And so I reached out and I wanted to work with Jamie, and the experience was exactly the way that I anticipated it would be. It was so easy to we didn't even really talk a whole lot. We just created. It was like, hey, Jamie, how's it going? All right, Shawnee. Okay, here we go. And we just like topic wise, like we had obviously some similar situations where we needed to just burn love. And we did exactly that. Like, I think it was like a 40-minute session that we wrote Burn in Love. And And then we had this space at that amazing center to grab like hundreds of year old like instruments and just create, and produce this track that, her and I just get to wail on.
And this EP is very much based around sort of burning down the past and creating new. But I know you do have quite a few songs from the past that are based more around the support for others. And you have quite a few about support for youth, support for women. And so where do those songs fit? Because I don't really see anywhere online where they sort of fit in with this EP or with your career. So where did those songs sort of originate from just over the past few years in trying to, have that therapy of speaking what you felt?
Yeah. And when I created like songs in the past, it was all about, I was trying to find this true place of self-empowerment and wanting to relate that to other people. And then I went through life experiences in the past while that really brought me back to some of those struggles where I needed to release in like music is medicine, and being able to release that out through a creative experience. I don't think about what needs to happen in a creative space. I let my spirit and my experiences speak. So, releasing music in the past is what I had to say then. And this EP is what I've gone through most recently. And it's what I desperately needed to say now. And I also want to open myself up more to, I want people to know why do I believe in self-empowerment? Why do I believe in inspiring others? Why do I believe music is medicine? I talk a lot about that, but where does that stem from? And so, being able to share this more personal sort of look at who I am was really, really important to me. And that's, it really is the beginning of that chapter for me, and just sharing more of why I believe in what I believe in so much.
Is there anxiety tied with the release of this EP because of how personal it is? Or is it just excitement because the power that it has and the power that it can have for other people?
There's some anxiety, yes, because like I said, they're very vulnerable experiences, but at the same time, it's excitement because this chapter is where I've wanted to be for so long, being able to be in a space where it's about that trust factor, that trust factor of walking into a space with someone and saying, well, this is my story. This is what I faced. This is what I've gone through. Writing, and you have this like extremely vulnerable, intimate moment with whoever's in the room. And then you create something and you put it out in the world. So it's entirely intimidating, but also exciting because I've wanted, I feel so strong in everything that I am, the good, the bad, the struggle, the success, all of it. I feel strong and I'm okay with where I'm at, and I'm okay with sharing these experiences that I've been through, and it feels good.
And you were recently married. You recently married your partner, Jen. What does that mean to have her there along the journey? Like if you were just doing it yourself, would it be a lot different than having her there to support you and for you to kind of lean on her when you are doing all of this?
She definitely keeps me calm, and because the other part of creating is there's the business side. So that part doesn't come as natural to me, but it's a must. You have to learn if you're going to create this product. It's a creative product. And if it's not just for you and you want to share it with the world, there's aspects of that you need to sort of come to terms with. There's the business, and a lot of us creative minds do struggle with that part of it. So she keeps me sane when need be, when I'm like, releasing a song and this, and this needs to happen. And she's also has been in her own right in the industry. And so she very much understands like pressures and, the like overwhelmingness of it all. And so I feel so lucky to have, and she just believes in me so much and champions everything that I'm doing. And so it's so amazing to have that in my corner.
And you talk about sort of that artistic brain, that artistic side, and you really enjoy expressing yourself, expressing your voice through music. But now that you have this platform and expressing your voice in other ways, like public speaking and supporting youth and others in that way, and not necessarily just through your music, but also through your voice in other ways.
No, that's everything I believe in. Like, it's just as important. It's become just as important to me to use my platform to say, hey, I'm Indigenous and I'm proud. Because there was once a time in my life that I was scared to be Indigenous. I was afraid. I was afraid what people would say. I, did get made fun of because of it. I was afraid. And then I also being two-spirit and out as a two-spirit person, also afraid because and still there's not everybody it's not always a safe platforms still to be two-spirit. So but I don't care, because I use my platform so that the way I see it is, if I ever feel the pressure, if I feel unsafe, my responsibility is to those who really are not, maybe their family home lives, maybe they're young and they don't have the opportunity to remove themselves from a place that's not safe, or, from school or peers or any situation where they don't feel safe to be who they are. So I have a responsibility to use my platform and my experiences to voice who I am, so that they know I'm here and they know it's okay. And they know that there is a place for them where they can feel loved and they can feel safe.
And is it hard sometimes in having that positive outlook, but then looking at society on a whole and looking how long it is taking us to take these steps along the path to accepting everyone for who they are?
It is hard. Yeah, it definitely is hard to see people struggle, and it's hard to see the minds that are closed off to love and to culture. But I also see it as it's their loss. It really is their loss. And I do see these conversations that are opening up and being had for, people being celebrated for who they are, and I choose to see that because it's so important to lift culture and lift two-spirit and LGBTQ plus two people. It's so important to acknowledge, love and differences and culture and so there's definitely struggle, but there's also the flip side of it. Just means that, the more struggle, the more important it is to voice, everybody use where they are. You don't have to have a big platform. You don't have to be a singer or somebody, in the limelight, or you can be anyone. You can be a teacher. You can be, a librarian, to use, in some way, to use who you are to promote people, to promote who people really are. So I believe in that.
And with your music, with this new EP coming out and sort of this chapter of your life, hopefully wrapping up, and this struggle that we've gone through, sort of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, have you found your writing is already beginning to evolve on what we might see in your new music?
Yeah, definitely. I've evolved over the past few years, and just being able to, like, this, it feels like this inside spirit work that's, I've searched, and I do search. I believe we all evolve through life and continuously evolve. My music has done that. My voice has done that. And my writing has done that. I've come to this place, honestly, most recently, where again, I've just found this, I'm okay not being okay. I'm okay with feeling confident and feeling good walking into a room, but maybe sometimes I don't. That's good too. You know, it's just, life is all about living and finding who we are and then being that, just being that. I feel that responsibility to just, no matter what I am, just be it. And that has reflected my writing and my music, definitely. So there's this eye-opening sort of creative experiences that are happening that I'm so excited to share in, you know, the EP, and then which will then become an album and future music to come.
Awesome. So with the EP, will you be sort of adding songs to it and dropping a full album then?
Eventually, definitely. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. You know, it's not always an easy conversation to have, but I think it's amazing when people can really open up and share their experience, because I know that can help others. And even if it's, you know, 1, 5, 100 people who hear it and are inspired to seek help, to talk, to inspire others, then that's an amazing thing that you can do with your voice. And I really appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the chat.
Yeah. And everyone should go check out the new EP, and then we will look out for maybe a full album and new music coming soon. And congratulations on everything that you have going on. And we'll look forward to more in the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys once again so much for listening. And thank you to Shawnee for joining us and sharing her story in such a real and powerful way. Be sure to go check out her new EP wherever you stream your music. Please also make sure you are liking, sharing, following, subscribing to us on whatever streaming service you are listening on, and head over to social media. Give us a follow there as well, so you can stay up to date on all the exciting episodes that we have coming up in the future. Thank you once again for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Music Made Me.